Today, before we go into the closing, is about the new frontiers of membership. And so we'll have a series of sort of lightning presentations from 3 journalists who have helped to introduce membership in their countries, who will share a question that they're answering through their work or through their research over the next year. The first will be Navin Sagamani from the News Minute. He is going to talk to us about how the News Minute is experimenting with building out membership specifically for diaspora readers and what opportunities they see for other newsrooms with large diaspora communities to make that work happen. After that, he will be joined by Jacob Mull, who is now a fellow at the Nieman Foundation, but was also the CEO of Zetland. And Jacob will be joining us to speak about how Zetland has built membership among younger readers and younger listeners, and where he sees opportunities for other news organizations to do the same. Jacob moved to Boston to spend this year as a fellow at the Nieman Foundation after helping to found Zetland and after leading Zetland to sustainability through the ambassador campaign that you heard about yesterday. And last, we'll be joined by Javier Borelli, who is with Eldiario Argentina. He is the head of membership at Eldiario Argentina, which is the Argentinian branch of Eldiariodores in Spain, which many of you might know. Before that, Javier was the founding president of the cooperative newspaper Tiempo Argentino, which launched the first membership model in Argentina. He's also a longtime friend of the Membership Puzzle Project and has coached many of our newsrooms in Latin America and beyond. We're excited to be able to share Javi's work outside of MPP today as well. We will start with Navin. So Navin, take it away.
Thank you so much, Elio. Do you want me to share the presentation, or are you going to be playing that?
If you're ready to share, it'd be great if you could share your screen, but otherwise we can pull it up. Yep, working great.
Awesome. Right. So I just, before I start off, I need to make a disclaimer at this point. I'm not a journalist. I'm an operations person, and I run the operations part of the membership for the News Minute. So I'm kind of an odd man out, and my focus of what I'm going to talk will be more about the learnings and the operational side of things. But I'm happy to answer any questions that come up as well. So I'm going to dive quickly into it. I know that we have very little time. So I'll start with a quick introduction to who we are and what we do. So we are a digital-only news organization. We are called the News Minute, TNM for short. And our focus is on South India. Now, a quick note on the media landscape in India, on why this focus is relevant and important. There is a very vibrant independent media culture in India right now, which is very important in the current political landscape in the country. However, all major news outlets are based either in the political capital, which is Delhi, or the financial capital, which is Mumbai. And both of these are outside of the south, what is called the 5 southern states, which you actually see on the map right here. Now, the reason this identity is important is that culturally there is a similarity between the southern states, and our representation in what is normally called the mainstream or any of the media which is based outside of South India is from an outsider's perspective. And very often there is an imperfect understanding of the issues themselves. And more importantly, the South is treated like the South in the sense that it's usually thrown in as an add-on, only if there is some space that will even very significant events be reported in national news. So this makes our work very important because even when very significant things, like there were massive floods in the southwestern state of Kerala a couple of years ago, and they did not even get a small mention in national news, whereas we were, it was pretty massive with like hundreds of thousands of people being displaced. So that's the kind of gap that we fill. And this is our focus. We are focused completely on the south of India. The second part is that we are fiercely independent and we are fiercely feminist in our reporting. Um, our our company, out of about 40 of us, like 35 are women, and that is the kind of very a really strong. We bring a lot of very strong feminist approach to the whole reporting. This also is kind of it helps us represent underrepresented voices, not just in the South but in all of India in through our reporting. Now these have combined to give us a really loyal following. The core group that follows us, that supports our work, are people who either live in South India or who are from South India who live all around the world. So that's roughly the demographic that we cater to. So jumping into membership. So as a prelude to membership, a quick note on how membership came about is our the revenue that sustains us comes from advertising and branding. And apart from this, there's been the idea, there's been a lot of talk about membership. And since in 2019, and the plans were to kind of kick off something sometime in 2020. However, when the pandemic came, it significantly impacted our existing revenue model. So we kind of just went ahead and launched. When we launched in April 2020, all we had was we were offering a weekly newsletter and promised that we will build more features in the coming months. Now, this was, we went live with the hope that people would support us, and it was not misplaced. We had like the April, May have been till now like our largest sign-up months in terms of number of people who joined us to support our journalism. So that was one thing. We did not really have features built out. And the second part when we launched was that we were open only to Indian residents. And it was a very practical thing that happened, that we could not really have members outside of India simply because we could not collect money from them. There's a whole bunch of hoops you have to jump through in India to fulfill legal requirements in order to collect money from members outside India. So we, when we launched, we got about 400 people who were like who were based outside India, who were like, how do we sign up? So that kind of we knew that the demand was strong for that, but we could not really entertain them. We just put them on a mailing list and said, yeah, we will let you know when we can do it. So when we launched in April, our immediate goals over the next few months was to work on launching it for all our followers who are outside India. And the second part was to build out all the features that we had promised to our members. And these we worked on simultaneously. Now, the word on the diaspora opportunity, right? So the Indian diaspora is massive. There are 18 million people from India who live all around the world. A fair concentration of them in West Asia, in UAE and Saudi Arabia, and then large population in the USA. These are the two biggest population, but it's a fair sprinkling of the Indian diaspora pretty much throughout the world. So which meant that from an opportunity perspective, yes, there were all of these people, right? A huge proportion of them keep in touch with their home states, and they retain family and other ties with their with where they come from. So the migration from India to outside India in search of opportunities has been happening for quite some time now. But over the last couple of decades, it has kind of exploded. It's been pretty massive. But because of that, because a whole bunch of them are recent migrants, a lot of them actually, they keep coming back to visit their families, as well as they keep in touch with what is happening in their home states as well. And which kind of also means that from the perspective of, like, a lot of them, for example, own property, or they have siblings, or they have very close family members back here, which means they also want to know what is happening, what's happening. I mean, on the political front, who's the new party who's coming into power, all of this, because it also impacts people who are close to them, right? So, which meant that this is a very significant group of people, and just like I told you, a whole bunch of them actively follow us and they support our work. Now, as we were building out our membership program, we realized that, see, initially we had very broad strokes. We knew, for example, that we wanted to build a forum for membership for our members, where they could exchange ideas away from all the shouting and the all the terrible interactions that happen on existing social media channels. So that is one thing, but it was a broad stroke. So to fill in and to figure out how to make it happen, we actually had a bunch of conversations with members who were already members in India, as well as a whole bunch of prospective members. Remember all these people who said they wanted to join us? We spoke to a bunch of them, right? And as we kind of drew the conclusions from all of these data points that we were getting, we realized that there were specific differences between our audience of Indian residents and our audience from the diaspora. And we'll talk about them in a bit. So then we just realized, okay, fine. Now our membership then has to be slightly differentiated. We need to offer different options for our folks who are based outside of India than for the folks who are based in India. And these are kind of the differences. Like, their interests were very quite specific. Obviously, the first thing was unbiased reporting of the critical stories, which means that they were interested in the big stories and less in the little stories. Like something that happened recently, like a few weeks ago, we had torrential rains where I come from, Hyderabad. You can see it behind me. We had massive rains, and there was a video of a sinkhole opening up and a car which was parked in a car park sinking into it. Now, this video went viral within India, right? So when we reported on that and we put it up, it was like the number of hits we got on that from India was quite astronomical. It just took off. That story just took off. But almost no one from outside India was interested in that specific story. So these, we figured that there was the local buzz stories, like as we call them. These did not really figure big on the diaspora members' radar, right? They were also more interested in larger analytical pieces that could kind of connect the dots and say what is happening. So, for example, while there would be interest in saying the vaccination scene, which is in a specific city in India, if we say that, okay, X number of vaccinations took place on one day, or on these 3 continuous days, there was no vaccination because we could not, there were shortage of vaccines. These are individual reporting pieces. But a more analytical piece that spoke, kind of tied all of these pieces together and explained where they stood in relation to each other, and gave you a higher level understanding of that, was something that diaspora members were more interested in than our local members. The other thing is that in terms of the number of people, diaspora members are less. Typically, like currently we have about 1/4 the number of diaspora members as we have resident Indian members, right? So, and also it's a longer acquisition cycle. Wherever they engage with us, they would come to our any kind of, if we they would talk back to us, they would answer a survey, they would turn up for like a recruitment event. But typically they would take longer to actually put down their money and sign up for a membership. Right? But the kind of flip side of the better side of that is that it's significantly higher revenue per member. For what we would earn from a diaspora member in 2 months, we would earn from a resident Indian member in about 6 months. So roughly 3x was their revenue per member. So this is kind of like the characteristics of our diaspora audience. Now, because of this, based on a bunch of our conversations, as well as what we could actually afford to do in terms of our capabilities, we had our biggest differentiator between for the diaspora was something that we call a help desk. This helps diaspora based in different parts of the world to get things done on the ground in India. Typically, these are things. I mean, we don't help with emergencies where there is like where something has to be done on the ground in a timely manner. We do not have the capability to offer that, and we make this very clear upfront. But the kind of things that people typically ask us for is if they want to buy a property, or they have they need some legal help here, then we put them in touch with the right kind of people who can help them. We also help when, for example, when somebody needed to get a cake and a bouquet delivered to their parents on their wedding anniversary, we coordinate the groundwork to make that happen. So the help desk is kind of like a friend. If what's the kind of thing that you would ask your friend to help with back home? It's something like that. Another thing that is a diaspora only thing is a daily brief. It's kind of what happened when you were sleeping, kind of newsletter. It's a really small, compact newsletter. Top 5 stories from the previous 24 hours, and it's kind of timed in a way that it hits them roughly at around 9 a.m. their time. They get a choice of different time slots so that they can. Most people prefer the morning time slot for this. Apart from this, we have an engagement newsletter, which typically talks about this kind of also helps as a community piece, where it's not merely a relationship between one reader or one member and the News Minute. It also kind of is between the members as well. So we have opinions by members. We run opinion polls. We post the things there. We put collaborations with members. We put it up on this newsletter. We ask them questions, and the responses are put. It's kind of like how are other people engaging with us and sharing it with the whole group. We also have periodic meet and greet with the editorial team, specifically for diaspora members. This is because we've noticed that this is apart from, we have a monthly editorial meeting with for which we invite our members to be part of. Now, this is apart from that. This is more of a social meet and greet. It's kind of we tell them what we are generally thinking, or give them a larger idea of what we're doing at the News Minute, and they kind of pitch in with their ideas or tell us what disappointed them or what made them happy. It's kind of like a social event. And of course, the arts newsletter, and the arts newsletter is the perfect illustration for a point that I will make later. In our initial conversations, a whole bunch of people were extremely excited about the arts newsletter, and the first couple of issues went out, and there were a bunch of reads for that, but then it just declined rapidly, and after some time we would literally have 20 people reading the newsletter. So it was really terrible, and so we discontinued it. But these are the diaspora offerings, that diaspora only offerings that we came up with. So from our journey engaging with the diaspora as a special audience and catering to them and making them part of our membership, these are kind of like the top things that strike me, which could be applied in other to other special audiences as well. So the first thing is, it seems very obvious, but we had no idea of this when we went into those discussions. And for us, it was like after we'd done a bunch of discussions that the differences came out, where if you identify a special audience and you say you're going to cater to them, their needs are going to be different, both from an editorial as well as a membership perspective. This was a huge learning for us. The second thing is, it's really useful to talk to them about what they want, but definitely look for the data. So like the arts newsletter is kind of our learning that, there's a whole bunch of people, like 25, 30 different people we spoke to said that they would be delighted to have this arts newsletter. And but when we actually launched it, our numbers did not show that a huge number of people were reading it. And then it just kept going down until it like really bottomed out. Right? So the conversations can help you build a laundry list of things, but I think the data should be used to prioritize them to figure out what you need to actually go after. And then the third one was something that we learned when we realized our messaging, some of our messaging was really not working, because from our perspective, whenever we say, hey, you are a diaspora member, I mean, for us, for us, they were a diaspora member because they were different from the people from our other members who were based in India. But as far as they were concerned, they were just a member, a TNM member. And some messaging really did not work because of that. So it kind of, we are very conscious about when we address them as diaspora. So unless it's relevant to the specific issue that we are talking to them about, we make sure we just address it like it is going to a general audience. And then of course, like most things membership, preferences tend to like suddenly shift very quickly, and at that point, being responsive is the key. So there's there were a couple of things that we were doing on a regular basis with our diaspora members. Like we would tell them, we would invite them to like one-on-one conversations where either me or a couple of others from the editorial team, if they had any things. So these were initially very useful, or they got a lot of response where people used to write to us. Whether they took it up or not, they would always respond to us. But suddenly there was one point when it just stopped, and it never happened after that. And we were never able to, I mean, obviously then we stopped doing that because we didn't want to put any more effort into something that was not working at all. So yeah, so that is kind of, I mean, but I think this also is a larger membership thing. Sometimes some preferences just sway wildly. Yeah. So these are essentially the learnings that I have, and yeah, I'll be happy to take any questions at any time, either now or at the end.
Thanks, Nevin. And if you want to drop questions into the Q&A box, you can do that, and Nevin can begin to answer them in text, but we will have time for questions for all three of the speakers at the end of the presentations. So Nevin, you can stop sharing your screen, and I'll invite Jacob Mull to join us. And thanks again, Nevin, for that presentation. I think at MPP, we're really excited at the opportunities that you have sort of spotted amongst your diaspora readers. And we think that there are a lot of lessons for many other newsrooms with large diaspora communities from what you've done at the News Minute. Thank you. Take it away, Jacob.
Hello, thank you. And I've been assigned to tell you something about how we've worked with the young at Zetland. So I'll just start my presentation and okay. Just a second. Okay, I'm gonna have to ask Jakob to put my presentation on.
Okay, hold on.
Hmm?
Almost there.
I will say that the reason we invited Jacob to join and present today is because Zetland has succeeded at cultivating sort of 2/3 of their membership in their 20s or 30s, which is something that many news organizations hope to accomplish, but have not yet. And so, Jacob, I think will share with us today how they've made that happen and lessons for other newsrooms.
Yes, thank you. And just a really short presentation of Zetland. And I'm sorry, I'll probably be saying we a lot about Zetland, but as Ariel mentioned before, I stepped down as CEO, and I'm currently in the US. But I'm still a co-founder, of course, and co-owner. So, other people, wonderful people at Zetland, are doing the work currently. So we are, I think we can call ourselves the most successful newspaper startup in the Nordic countries. We've become that by being what Jay Rosen would call a very thick membership model. We try. One way to frame our mission is to build a public conversation that's based on curiosity and wisdom, to use a very old-fashioned term. A different way to say it would be to make the world a little bit less stupid. We've been profitable a few years and still growing. Luckily, we have around 25,000 members currently, and of them, 3,000 are ambassadors. We have an ambassador campaign coming up later this summer. We are 100% transparent. I'd like to say that's a lot of percentages, but test me if you like in the question area. And we have a few claims to fame, at least what have given us international attention a few times. And one is the mentioned ambassador model that I spoke about yesterday. The other is we've had some success being guided by our members by having all of our articles published as audio articles. And I think we wouldn't be here today if we hadn't taken that step. And that's one of the things I try to say to people working with text journalism around the world. I really think we have to think about how journalism is most relevant in everyday, like in people's everyday lives, from a very practical standpoint, from user, like a situational standpoint. And we found that making our articles accessible in audio was really the key to that. And I think maybe that has to do with the young as well. So I'll get to that in a little while. And and of course, the third thing is what Ariel mentioned, which is what our members look like. So these are the demographics. Our members in general, like all our paid members, we're 100% membership funded. So when we're talking about members, they are all paying members. And they are young. They are 18 to, about a third of them are 18 to 29-year-olds. About 40% are between 30 and 44, and the remaining group is older. We want to be as diverse as we can geographically, age-wise, in terms of income, social background, ethnicity, everything. So we don't like try to be a young publication, but we sort of are, especially compared to many of other people in journalism these years, of course. But I think there's an important question when we talk about the young, which is what are we actually talking about? So there is this group over here, I would say the very young. They are like 18 to 25. I believe their life situation does not necessarily lend itself to paid journalism. They are trying to figure out who they are in life, or we were all there, all of us. And their attention will go places depending on their life choices and their interests and their friends. But then there is the next group, and it's not it's not because I'm 43 that I define young people this way. It's I would say compared to the business in general. I think the very important people to look at right now are the people that are maybe 25. Starting to maybe finish their education, get their first jobs, build and their identities as grown-ups. I think that's the very important group to think about, and that's sort of like fades. And again, this is partly from research and partly like anecdotal and my ideas. So take it for what it is. When we talk to our members, we can see that there is a phase after finishing your education and getting a job, and until you maybe start having children and getting other types of responsibilities, where you are open for new things, and you're probably doing pretty well in those years if you're lucky enough to have a job. And I think those are the people that the journalism industry is having a lot of trouble connecting with right now. And it's definitely it's the group that we've had the fortune of connecting with really well. I think also we can learn a lot from the even younger ones. So I'll actually just get to that group in the very end of the presentation. So I quote one of my co-panelists from earlier this week. This was said during the membership puzzle summit. Young people want to watch Netflix and listen to Spotify. They want entertainment. They don't want to pay for news. I will simply say I believe this is wrong, at least as like a sweeping statement. So I just picked up like a number from a Pew Internet Research study in May, and this is a question that was put to, this is in the American public, and the question was, have you talked about need for action on climate at least 1-2 times? And these are the age brackets, and the one on the left is the youngest age bracket, what they call Generation Y. And the funny thing is, the question was, have you done this within the past 2 weeks? So 2/3 of the youngest generation have had this conversation within the last 2 weeks. So you can see that young people are currently more interested in paying for Netflix and Spotify. Yes, that's probably true across the world. But if we frame them as somebody who wants entertainment and who have no interest in connecting with wider issues, I think we're making a very big mistake. And I took climate now, but it actually goes for a bunch of other issues. Maybe not the exact same ones as our parents would be interested in, but I would say climate is just like the top of the iceberg. And this is a great reason for optimism. So I would say if we're not able to be relevant to these people, that's on us in journalism. If we want to understand this better, I can highly recommend the report from the Reuters Institute from, I think, 2 years ago. It's a qualitative study, but it really underlines this idea that when we talk about young people, they are very, very different. There is definitely a group. This was done in the US and the UK. There is a large group. In this study, it's like the people on the very left of the framework you see on the right side of the screen that are difficult to connect with, and some of them are news avoiders. Huge challenge, but there are many, many young people that will be ready to lead the way and have a great interest in news. They don't feel necessarily that traditional news outlets are relevant to them or speaking to them even. Also, I would say though that in this report, the conclusion is that it's hard to achieve loyalty from this group. And I think that's wrong. And I'll give my argument in a second. Because the thing was, we actually weren't trying to reach young people, like in particular, when we started launching in 2016. Actually, the CEO at the time, who was me, almost had the same stupid ideas that we can hope to reach the people that are having families or in their 40s, 50s, and older people that are already paying for newspapers. That was my idea, because I heard so many times, especially back then, young people will not pay for journalism. Well, turned out we attracted young people, and of course I have some ideas about why. So we were running a thick membership model, we were trying like actively, to be honest, and to be as vulnerable as possible. So I believe when trying to be transparent, you have to be the most transparent about your insecurities and your vulnerabilities and your mistakes. Also, we were actively listening to our members. This is really similar to the best of what's happening on YouTube. And this entire age bracket is that, you know, that's one thing that ties them together. They all use YouTube, and they are very accustomed to how relationships are built on YouTube and how people communicate. So I think that helped us connect with them. The second part was we were from the beginning trying to be solutions oriented, constructive journalism, what do you want to call it. So we always tried to not simply write about death and destruction. And we only publish a few stories every day, and it's like in the genre of feature journalism. So our focus was big issues, big ideas, and the future. And if there is one thing that, you know, ties the younger generations together, I would say that it's, you know, being aspirational is just part of being young. Cynicism comes with age, and I have to say, one of the things I dislike most about news journalism, which I'm trained in, I'm a journalist myself originally, is like the built-in cynicism. And that's something we have to take a step back from, if we want to connect with the young. So our way of thinking about journalism definitely helped us. And the third thing was how we told stories. We journalists tend to tell stories often because we know so much about what's going on. We'll just like write a story about the latest stuff that happened in some Joe Biden political, something. And we consciously tried to take things from the top. I remember Crowd Reporter a few days ago in a presentation said that one of the most successful stories was about like explaining the crisis, the Palestinians problem from the very top. One of the most successful stories. We've tried that many times. And next thing is we always explain very explicitly, why is this story important? Because again, as journalists, we have habits of like simply thinking this is important because it's important. No, not necessarily. There are so many things we could spend our time following. And the final thing is we have invested a lot from the beginning in building a technology that is frictionless. That is something I believe is like a foundation. If you're trying to do anything with technology with this age group, they are used to low friction. And at the same time, we said actually, we want this to be easy and not disturb you all the time. We're very careful about notifications and these things. And to be honest, this generation uses technology every single day, every minute of the day almost, and they sort of hate it. If you really talk, like if you know somebody that's really young, or if you're young yourself, the thing, they are with their friends, and their friends will be checking their phones, and they do it themselves, and they don't really like it. So the idea of technology and media being more friendly to social circumstances, that actually works. So these, I think, were the reasons that we sort of ended up becoming connecting with the young. And the final maybe the final ingredient is this very difficult idea of tone of voice. We talked about it yesterday as well, and what is tone of voice? I usually say that the tone of voice we aspire to is to be, you're taking a drive with a friend, and this friend is knowledgeable and passionate about something, and she is telling you, what's on her mind. That's how we wanted to feel, connecting with our journalism, and I think we wouldn't be here if we hadn't actively tried to pursue that. That's it. At the very end, I'll just let you meet this guy. This is my 15-year-old son, because there are the even like the next generation of young people like Frode, his name is. And I try to talk with him as much this year as I can, because I'm pursuing the fellowship to try to like understand how trust evolves, and like relationships evolve on platforms such as Twitch or YouTube and these places where there is a surplus, I would even say, of trust. And I think we have so much to learn from our children or our younger friends, and we really have to listen to what they're saying. He just told me that one of the YouTubers he follows will stream the entire process of putting together a video on Twitch. Like the whole day will be streamed on Twitch. That's transparency. And actually, the other thing I'll be looking at during my fellowship is figuring out how to open something like Zetland in new countries. So that's like a segue to Javier. I'm very much looking forward to hearing from our friends at Eldiario.
Thank you, Jacob. I didn't even have to jump in between because you just seamlessly handed off to the next speaker. Javi, you're welcome to turn video on and join us. And Jacob, thank you so much for joining us. And I think one of the things that I love about this panel is, well, we've learned so much about membership and we have so many established best practices at this point. The goal of this panel is to show how many sort of frontiers of membership we are just beginning to explore. And I think the membership opportunity amongst younger readers is another that has a lot of potential. And last but not least, we have Javier Borelli, who will be talking about is it possible to expand a successful membership program to another country, which is what they're trying to do at Eldiario Argentina. Thanks, Javi.
Thanks, Ariel. Thanks, Jacob. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I know we're a little behind time, so I will go straight away to my presentation. And I can assure you it will be quite short because, as Ariel said, the main question here is, can a strong member-driven newsroom replicate its success in another country? And my answer is no. So thank you very much for your time, and I will be glad to answer to any of your questions. Now, really, that was a joke, but I really think that it's impossible to think it that way. There are two complicated words in this question. One is replicate, and the other is success. And what I am going to try to do here is to try to unfold these ideas. So Eldiario R, that is the branch of Eldiario S in Argentina, comes after the example of Eldiario S. And to be honest, we have a strong example to look in the mirror, and it's difficult to do it because we have different contexts. For example, Eldiario was launched in Madrid in September 2012 within the framework of a crisis of institutional representation, while Eldiario R was launched in Buenos Aires in December 2020 within a sanitary and economical crisis. What are the main differences between one or the other? They are, well, it's the third point. Eldiario was the first media outlet in the country, in Spain, to pursue membership, while Eldiario R in Argentina, it was launched when there were several newsrooms already pursuing membership. And the most successful ones had 5 years and already benefited from a very polarized society. In Argentina, polarization is top-notch, and it had translated into media organizations very much. And membership, believe it or not, is also benefiting from that polarization. So Eldiario R also has a challenge there when we are trying to pursue a membership model while at the same time being a quite, how do you say, neutral in terms of political position. Then Eldiario also was founded by Ignacio Escolar, that it was the former director of a well-known national media outlet, that when it shut down, thousands of readers were looking for what to read, and they followed to Eldiario S, while Eldiario R has two things. First, it was co-founded by Eldiariodores, so it has a Spain-like root. Being in Argentina, a former colony of Spain, is not something that you will say that people would love to listen, and also has experienced Argentinian journalists that are part of Eldiario, but none of them maybe has the presence in the media knowledge as was Ignacio Escolar. Another thing is, should we compare? I mean, should our success look alike? So this is the chart of how Eldiario is behaved. They started in 2012. Since 2013, they start growing. They have two big step forwards. It was one scoop they did after 6 years of their launch. Then after the COVID campaign, they were tremendously successful in asking people to support them while COVID. So now they have 61,000 members. That's a lot. They have 111 employers. 46% of their income come from its readers, and this amount doubled in 2012. And they are the 11th news brand in terms of trust and the first digital one. So if we have to stay to see this and say we are going to do the same, we are going to be in a big problem. There is one more thing. I mean, the Reuters Institute said this year in their digital news report that in most countries, large proportion of digital subscriptions go to just a few national brands. That idea of winner takes all, you know? And Eldiariodores, being also one of the first in Spain, also got something of this. They are in between the three main news outlets in terms of subscribers. Having been born Eldiario after the initial situation, okay, now we have to, how do you say, beat the trend, beat that trend. So what are we doing right now? We are learning from another experiences. Of course, we are seeing what they did, and we are seeing also what everyone else is doing, Zedland among others. We are adapting the situation because one thing could be the Nordic countries or Spain, and another different thing is Latin America and Argentina especially. We are experimenting, that's the most important issue, to see our mistakes and learning from them. And also we are redefining success. I mean, success is not necessarily what Eldiario did. We have to find our own KPIs, yeah, to understand what can be success. So one of the first things that we did was listening to our audience. We launched quite quickly after the first month or two a survey where we asked our people what would they add to Eldiario. Most of them asked us for a daily newsletter and thematics newsletters, so we launched them. We asked them also why do they read Eldiario. They told us that most of them, because our journalists, also through our information, through our articles, because they believe that we were independent also. So all that kind of issues, afterwards, we turn it into our claims for calling for subscription. And we also ask them, how did they learn about us? In order to understand, okay, where could be the path through the one that we will be able to get to more people. How do they get here? Well, most of them through our journalists and recommendations. Afterwards, through an article they read. So we are trying to use that in order to promote our mission. What else we are doing? We are starting to analyze the behavior and the interests of them. What we are seeing here is like a heat map, on the right hand, where you can see all the hours of the day, and we can start identifying, okay, in which times of the day people gets more to our website. So we start using all that information to promote some special articles. And we are also listening, we are also seeing what you have in the left side of the screen, that is how users behave. So every users are on the left, heavy users are on the top right, are in the center. We have our current members. And you may see that how the different behavior shows in terms of if they get through desktop or if they do it through the mobile phone, what is the amount of time that they stay in the media outlet, how many pages they see per session, and all that kind of information we are using also to promote what we do. So we are introducing our mission, we are explaining our business model that it's quite new for Argentina as well, even though there are some other membership organizations. Eldiario have some particularities, among others, that it's something that it's not a traditional news outlet. It's quite new, so we have to explain what we are, what do we do. And we are testing also our user experience, because the user experience of Eldiario R is somehow related to the user experience of Eldiarios, because we have the same CMS. But we are also discovering that maybe you need to make some modifications in order to use it in Argentina. In all this time, what we did, as I told you, was we started sending these first newsletters, the daily one and others. For example, in Argentina, we identified that a lot of people, I don't know if you know this trend, but Argentina is the country that has more people with a degree of for psychology per 100,000 inhabitants. That's quite an issue, but if you know an Argentinian and you ask them, they will tell you that most of them go or have gone at some point of their life to therapy. So we have a special newsletter about therapy as well, and it proves to be up to date, the one that has the bigger number of subscribers, for example. These are things that we are experimenting and discovering. We conducted our first live stream as well, and we know that this is just getting started. So as you may see here, I mean, our objectives are to increase newsletter subscribers, to increase loyal readers, to increase on-site participation, and to diminish the conversion friction that Jacob mentioned before, because we are also aiming to a younger generation. So we are very interested in doing that. And as I told you before, our system has been organized for Spain. And for example, in Argentina, we had, I mean, for example, credit and debit card, payments with credit and debit card, and less popular than in Spain. So we have to make some modifications in order to introduce another way of paying also throughout our payment platform. Our curve, of course, is still quite flat. We are just starting, but we are beginning to understand how it behaves. So for example, we start identifying what happened in our first membership campaign, what happened when we launched our first magazine, because we have also, as a benefit for our members, we have a printed magazine that is sent specially to our members every 3 months, and it's a thematic magazine. So we identify that during that period of time, our membership base growth. So now we know also that kind of product is a member-driven. It's something that also drives a lot of membership, and so we are starting to see, okay, how shall we promote membership also using this kind of product as one of the ways to boost our membership. These are things that, as I mentioned to you before, we are developing every day, learning every day, and I'm sure that the KPIs and the objectives that we have today will probably vary tomorrow. What we know is that we cannot expect that it would be a mistake to expect that Eldiario R behaves the same as Eldiarios, and we have to do our own path, and we are very happy to be on it, to learn from it, and of course I'll be happy as well to listen to your questions if you have, and trying to tell you more if possible. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Javi. I have a question actually for all three of you. So if the other two panelists can join us back on the screen. Jennifer Brandel said this on the panel on Wednesday about the correspondent, and she talked about the challenges of doing something new and the fact that mistakes happen and there will be failures, and sort of how can we have a better conversation around experimentation. I'm curious, each of you have tried something very new in the membership space. How do you sort of get yourself ready for that trying of a new thing? You don't know if it's going to work. How do you talk about that to your team? How do you sort of handle emotionally the challenges of trying new things and not necessarily being sure that they will work?
I can go first if that works. Mine's a cheat answer because I don't really have a team to convince. I mean, it's pretty much me. I have to be ready to put in the work for this because we have a really small team. It's me and half of one person and like 25% of another. So, but something new like this definitely requires buy-in from the editorial team because they're going to be the ones who are ultimately going to be providing all the content that's going to go behind this. So, in a way, selling it to the rest of the organization helps you figure out, okay, is this going to, do I have a valid proposition or not at all? So I think that, from where we come from, that if I'm able to make that sale, that's going to be the hardest sale. After that, it's just meeting the market realities, but to figure out is this idea worth pursuing? Is this new audience worth going after? So I think that part is quite, the only word I can use to describe that is it's frustrating and exciting at the same time, because you're going to get a lot of questions for which there are not really answers. But at the same time, those few answers that you have make you think hard about whether you should go after it or not. So yeah, that's kind of been the experience with trying out new things.
I know. Go.
Okay. I think there is a problem with the question, Ariel, which is this idea that if you experiment, you try to launch something new, it will either work or fail, and if it fails, it's a problem. And I'll try to answer in the framework of membership journalism, because of where we are. So say, for instance, one of the last things I did before stepping down or leaving Zetland was we launched something that I had actually spoken with Jay Rosen about in Copenhagen a few years ago, which was like the most radical membership involvement idea we could get, was to let the members have volunteer members help edit the actual stories we published. So I've wanted to try that for a long time. But the beginning of that project, experiment, was like the success parameter for that project was to make it as visible as possible to the members, because the act of saying, even the most sacred place within journalism, the place where we're actually finishing the stories, we're willing to let you into that space. And so does that sound like a good idea? And so we figured out a way to do it in Google Docs, and I got 30 volunteers, and I said, that's all I need. And we ran the experiment, but I kept telling about it to the members. And so in the end, we've decided to keep doing it because it does add something. Of course, they're not going to help us with, we don't ask them to fact check or to balance sources or anything, but they can tell us story feels kind of long after 20 minutes, or I didn't understand that word because I'm maybe quite young and people don't use that word anymore, whatever. So very valuable, but the project was a success simply because doing it showed our intention and made the mission clear. So I think we're careful about thinking about experiments like something that has to work and impress people, because showing you're experimenting is one of the ways to show what the Intercept said earlier, which is what we're doing is about change. And if we're trying to change the world, society, journalism, then of course we're experimenting. Please be part of it.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Thank you for recasting the question that way, because I think that that is the better way to approach it. Javi, anything to add to that?
No, I agree with Jacob that I think that maybe the challenge there is quite internal in terms of how do you understand what you are doing. I mean, from each attempt that you do, you will learn something. So in some ways, you are always moving a step forward. In some cases, you get someone in the newsroom to get more involved in the process. In another situation, you understand how people behave, or maybe you understand that your perception of the trend that you saw and that brought you this idea was correct or not. And sometimes it just happened that maybe you did something in the wrong time, in the wrong moment, and maybe in a month later that would succeed. I think that, at least, for example, I remind one thing from Tiempo Argentino. Tiempo Argentino was the news outlet where I was before Eldiariodores, and we had a printed newspaper that was sold on Sundays. And we decided that during the summer we will sell the newspaper in the beach area of Argentina, where the newspaper didn't get usually. And we thought, okay, this would be great because people will go to the beach with the newspaper, and everyone will see that we are still there, because it was a newspaper that stopped publishing, and we decided to republish it. And the thing was that in terms of sales, it was a disaster. It was a disaster. We lost money doing that, because we had to to take the newspaper from Buenos Aires to our Atlantic coast. But the thing that was that we made a campaign that made people really happy about that. I mean, say, oh, it's great that Tiempo Argentino is also getting to the summer. We are now seeing that Tiempo Argentino got back for sure, because they are trying to do that. And then we told people, okay, we're not going to do this next year because it was very sad for our economic situation. So more people joined Tiempo Argentino in order to sustain. So it was a fail that somehow helped us in the future, you know?
It's a great story. Thanks, Javi. All right, well, thank you, Nevin, Javier, and Jacob, for joining us and sharing what you're working on. We look forward to following your work. And if you want to drop in the chat ways that people can follow your research, what you're trying at your organizations, that would be great. But I think we're going to wrap up and say goodbye to everybody now. And Jay's moving on to the screen since we're in the same room.